Well, we are here at Fort Loudon with Goober the Traveling Bear, and we've stumbled into a Russian unit. Can you tell us what you're doing?
Okay, we're a little bit asynchronous to the fourth, but we are the also a Viakim Foundation. We are a group of Soviet reenactors and imperialist Russia and going into the modern Russian Federation, Ukraine, things like this. But we're here for a training. We have an upcoming tactical in about a month, and we rented out the Fort Loudon site to do some training. Our focus is on scout and sniper training. We are just going over communication, how to use the radios and things we have here, how to use steel telephones. As I said, we're going to portray a scout and sniper group at that event. And this is a good little chance for us to do some training and hang out. Our unit, Oslo Aviakim, was not a military unit. It was a paramilitary training group. They did all sorts of things, like they trained famous sniper Lyudmila Pavlichenko how to shoot her rifle before the war. It was like the civilian marksmanship program combined with like the Boy Scouts, combined with like they did glider flights, they did civilian parachuting, they sold moonshine illegally to raise money, just all around very Soviet Russian organization. But
Now, who is the commissar?
that would be
We don't have a political officer.
Yeah, we don't really have a political officer. They had political officers at the beginning of the war, and they were a big thing. But towards 1942, 1943, they kind of got rid of them. So they were causing a lot of problems, ordering units to advance when they really shouldn't be advancing, sending a lot of people to their deaths. They did bring back like a political guy, Zampolit, who would do like political education. You know, if you were saying things like, "Oh man, I hate Stalin," you'd have to go have a talk with the Zampolit. But he'd also like have him sing songs. He'd do political speeches, like
military education,
education,
morale building activities,
things like that.
What kind of weapon are you holding? And I'll pause the camera for you to catch your breath.
Okay, we have a nice variety of weapons that we brought with us for some weapons familiarization. Here we have a wooden box anti-tank mine, anti-personnel mine. If you would step on it, it would pop out a cotter pin here and set off this nice block of TNT. Should kind of ruin your day. This is a RGD 33. These were actually made on like civilian can making equipment, like a tin can. And that's why they're so easy to produce. They're just stamped steel. You have an open one around here somewhere. On the inside, there's coiled up thin sheet steel as well, so it would just fragment all over. Here is one of our pride and joys. This is a Mosin Nagant PU. A lot of people say that the Mosin is a like pretty crap rifle, and it's not. This one we've taken personally out to like 1,000-meter ranges, and we're still able to hit targets at 1,000 meters with this rifle. And it is definitely her pride and joy. She's our Lyudmila Pavlichenko Soviet sniper. This is a PPS H-41. It's designed by Georgy Shpagin. It has a 71-round drum. It shoots 7.62 by 25, which is like the Mosin rifle cartridge, but shrunk, is shorter, but it's still neck down. This was a very common rifle in the Soviet rifle squad. It really gave them a lot of fire superiority. This is a PPS 43. This wasn't a replacement for the PPS H-41. It was kind of a supplement. They were cheaper to produce, and they could be produced in factories that couldn't make the milled parts of this. It's almost entirely a stamped gun. And in my personal biased opinion, this is the best submachine gun in World War II. It's very simple, very easy to use, very ergonomic. On the opposite end of that scale is the squad light machine gun. This is a DP-28, Degtярov. It's called DP-27 by Soviet sources, Russian sources. But it fires a 47-round pan magazine on the top.
Sort
So-
of like a Lewis gun?
Yeah, sort of like a Lewis gun. It's a pan magazine so that you can still see down the sight. With like a Bren gun, you have that magazine in the way blocking your sight. And a BAR, you're limited with the ammunition capacity on the bottom because you have to level the gun down on the ground. We have one more toy. This is, he says, RPG-43. This is an anti-tank grenade. You would throw it at specific places on a German tank, especially on the back, on top of the motor. It's a shaped charge, so it would do a lot of damage to a German tank. The ones they had this before this, the RPG-41, was essentially just this part. It's just a metal can full of TNT. Again, made on commercial can making equipment they bought from the United States in the 30s. And this is the famous Molotov cocktail. This one's just made out of a beer bottle, and this one is more actually
What's
specifically
the liquid?
produced.
Is it just gasoline?
It is like jellied gasoline. I think these ones are
Yeah,
dish
so
soap.
when you think of a Molotov and you look at like footage from riots and things, and you see a bottle with a rag sticking out, that might be useful for riots. But when you talk about industrial production, the frontline troops, you need something that is transportable and has a shelf life. So the KS grenade, the chemistry of these was based off white phosphorus, and would ignite on air. So as soon as this bottle would break, it would ignite. This is a longer burning, but it burns hot. Bottles such as this one is missing the pieces, but there would have been large like store matches on the outside, which once rubbed with sandpaper would light, and so when the bottle breaks, it would ignite the fluid inside. Burned colder, but for a longer period than that one, and with less smoke, and hopefully would get the guys out of the vehicle or disable the vehicle if they jump out. Then your submachine gunner can
That's what
spray
this
them
is
down.
for. And it was
Okay. So we were just asked about women in the Red Army because we have two women here. There are more women in our group. Women served in the Red Army throughout the war, about a million off the top of my head. About half of those served in combat roles, not just traditional roles such as nursing and pencil pushing secretaries like occurred with WACS and other women organizations in Western Allied nations or in the Third Reich. Women during the war served as snipers, machine gunners, fighter pilots, tank drivers, anti-aircraft gunners in all forms. A lot of them had military training prior to the war through organizations like Ozavikum, which led co-ed training programs. And women at the front line, it was kind of a divisive issue within the Soviet Union, both from the party perspective and the state. There were a lot of old hardliners who had more conservative views about women and thought they belonged in traditional roles. But there were all, and this was also a very common opinion on some of the officers who were of an older generation, a generation prior to the revolution. While women who grew up in the aftermath of the revolution and those younger generations grew up in a society which viewed women and men as equal sexes, and at least nominally, men had experience with women in military programs because of paramilitary groups like Ozavikum. So for young enlisted men, it was not abnormal for them to have women amongst them. Some units were co-ed, some were gender divided, and women after the war, though, felt as though the victory was kind of taken from them, as men took a lot of the credit for the victory, and that wasn't really rectified until the 80s with oral histories and some serious looking back and trying to reveal the stories of women. I don't know if you guys want to talk about women that you've read about or that you're inspired by or anything you have to add.
You're very close to his mic, so you'd be fine.
All right. Well, from the million of women who were into the Soviet Union service, 20,000 of them became snipers, and 4,000 of them would only survive. That being said, there's a very famous sniper who I particularly take after. Her name is Ludmila M. Pavlichenko, and she comes from Ukraine. Formerly, she was a student of history in Kiev, and then she went on to pursue her master's in Odessa. But just as she had gotten into Odessa, her university was bombed, and that's what catapulted her career into the Soviet Army. She had attended the Oso-Aviachim training. She actually graduated as a second-degree marksman and had been awarded the Voroshilov shooting badge. After being awarded that badge, she went to a recruiting station where she was at first told that since she was a woman, she would be better off serving as a nurse. She was quite offended by that and decided to dump an entire box full of her shooting awards right in front of the recruiting officer, who then promptly decided to smile, realize his mistake, and then said, "Okay, sure, you can go into shooting with the rest of the men." So she was sent into sniper training school, the Central Women's Sniper Training School, where she would, like many other women, be taught how to go and fire their three-line, otherwise known as the Mosin Nagant, or in this case, this is the PU Mosin sniper rifle, and they would be shooting from anywhere from 300 meters to 800 meters, and they would be taught exclusively in camouflage techniques as well as scouting techniques, tracking, and in total, her career with the skills that she had picked up as well as the skills that she had learned on the field would lead her to have 309 confirmed kills.
Wow.
Okay, one thing that is kind of foreign to a lot of Americans is how Soviet cigarettes looked. And this isn't, they wouldn't call this necessarily a cigarette, they would call it a papiros or papirosi. As you can see, it looks like a filtered cigarette that's backwards, but this part is the tobacco part, and this rest is just a hollow paper tube. And that's for a good reason. This isn't tobacco per se, it's what's called majorca. We call it tobacco indica or something in America, in Indiana. It's Indian tobacco in America. And it has a lot more nicotine in it and a lot more tar. They're very unhealthy. This is a Bellamore Canal, which is a 9th class cigarette, the worst ones. But they were very cheap. They were a lot cheaper than a traditional cigarette would be in the Soviet Union. But you can go even cheaper than that. You could buy just a whole container of loose tobacco called of the Mahorka, and they would sell rolling papers, so you could make a more traditional cigarette. They would also, when they ran out of these, they would make them out of newspapers. A lot of Red Army soldiers were arrested by the NKVD for rolling them out of propaganda leaflets. And that's that's a theme in a couple of movies. But to smoke this, you would flatten it like this, so that all of this doesn't suck down the tube when you try to inhale. But it's definitely something that they don't sell in the United States, partially because they're so awful for your health. They're so bad.
Okay. I see Goober has joined the Communist Party. Can you tell me how did you get him to enlist?
Every Soviet soldier during World War II was issued 100 grams of vodka a day. It's a pretty hefty shot of vodka. We actually have a measuring cup for it around here somewhere. But this did a few things. It numbed their nerves for battle, made them more willing to risk their lives. Also, in the Soviet Union and in Imperial Russia, most of the taxes, like 33% of their tax income, came from the tax on vodka. So it prepared every veteran of World War II to deal with the trauma by funding money back into the military, back into the government. In the 1960s and 1980s, the entire Red Army was paid for with the tax on vodka.
Wow.
And more Soviet citizens died between 1960 and 1985 of alcohol poisoning, alcohol-related illness, or alcohol-related accidents than died in the Great Patriotic War by a margin of something like 10 million.
All right. Well, I guess Goober has joined your squad. Hello. What are you about to do?
All right. So this is a Soviet PPS-43 submachine gun. This is an open bolt full auto weapon. So the way this works, instead of a normal gun having a hammer and sear within, this just has the sear. So when I pull back the bolt, it locks open like that. It'll fire when it goes forward. When I release it, it'll grab a round of ammunition there. These are blanks, by the way. Slam it into the receiver and fire. Let me know when you're ready.
We are ready.
Fire in the hole!
All right. That's amazing. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Kevin, what do you think of our trip with Goober the Traveling Bear?
That was great till the end. I got sprayed by these spent cartridges there.
Can you tell me about your motorcycle, sir? And I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
My name is Chad. So I guess I can give you a little bit of history of so this bike is actually a reproduction of a German BMW bike called the R71. And that was a bike that the German army actually didn't want. And they gave the rights and the tooling and everything to the Soviet Union in I think 1938. And then the Soviets started making this bike called the M72. So it could take up to 3 men, and it has a machine gun mount for their light machine gun, which was the DP-28. I mean, this is fairly new to me. So I mean, it's not very fast. I think the top speed is like 50 kilometers an hour. 2-cylinder boxer engine. I mean, that's
All right.
That's about it. It was a standard bike for them throughout the entire war.
Goober wants to know where the keys are.
They're in a box inside.
All right. Well, thank you for telling us about your motorcycle. It looks really cool, and I guess we'll say stay safe, be kind, be courteous, and thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate all I learned, and Goober has joined your squad. I guess he's staying with you. And what's the name of your unit?
Also, Aviachim.
Okay.
Not very easy to remember. But...
And stay safe, be kind, be courteous, and please watch Bill's History World with Goober the Traveling Bear, who has now joined the Russian army and is drinking vodka.
Ура! Ура! Зарорина!